will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House suspend the rules and pass S. 1550, the Program Management Improvement Accountability Act, as amended.
Clerk will report the title of the bill.
Senate 1550, an act to amend Title 31, United States Code, to establish entities tasked with improving program and project management in certain federal agencies and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Carter, and the gentlewoman from the District of Columbia, Ms. Norton, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the bill under consideration.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of S. 1550, the Program Management Improvement Accountability Act, introduced by Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa. Program and project management are the guidelines that are necessary, are the guardrails that are necessary to ensure the federal government actually works. Effective program and project managers are both the first line of defense against waste and fraud throughout the federal government and the best positioned employees to increase government efficiency. With federal spending out of control, we need the best program and project managers we can get to combat waste, fraud, and inefficiency. According to CBO, the federal government will spend more than $4 trillion in fiscal year 2017. But better management alone could prove a significant effect on our long-term spending. A 2013 Accenture study found that a 1% increase in efficiency could save the federal government nearly $1 trillion by 2025. S. 1550 gives our federal professionals the support and leadership they need to build a strong foundation of efficiency for federal programs and projects. The bill addresses challenges these professionals face to ensure that the management professional in our federal workforce have the guidance, support, and professional standards necessary to improve efficiency. According to a report by the National Academy of Public Administration, there are 5 significant challenges to improving program management capabilities in the federal government. Laws do not holistically address challenges of program management. Program management is not recognized as an important discipline for improving performance and results. Agency executives and stakeholders do not understand their roles and responsibilities. Training and development of program managers lack consistency across the federal government, and program managers lack a professional community to provide support and voice concerns about program management development. S. 1550 addresses these challenges by requiring OMB's Deputy Director of Management to adopt and oversee government-wide standards that are consistent with private sector best practices. Requiring agencies to designate a senior executive to serve as a Program Management Improvement Officer, an individual who will then be responsible for implementing standards and policies set by OMB at their agency, and establishing a Program Management Policy Council to discuss topics of importance to program and project managers and make recommendations to resolve inefficiencies in programs identified as high risk by the Government Accountability Office. Providing guidance and leadership to our federal employees responsible for trillions of dollars in spending will go a long way toward meeting a simple goal like increasing efficiency by just 1%. I urge my colleagues to support this cost-saving, bipartisan bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Georgia reserves. The gentlewoman from the District of Columbia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentlewoman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I support this bipartisan legislation to improve program management practices in federal agencies, and I want to thank my good friend, Representative Conley, and of course Representative Young for their bipartisan hard work on this bill. The bill would require the development of standard policies and guidelines across the federal government for program management. It would also establish an interagency program management policy council to develop best practices and focus on improving the management of federal programs. The bill would, in addition, require the Office of Personnel Management to establish a new career path for program and project management and to identify key skills and competencies for such jobs. The federal government is often called upon to manage large, complex new programs and initiatives and needs a cadre of managers capable of guiding this work. S 1550 as amended is a good bipartisan measure that would improve the management of the federal government, and I urge its adoption while reserving balance of my time.
Gentlewoman from the District of Columbia reserves. Gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
I would like to make Delegate Norton aware that I have no further speakers and I'm prepared to close.
Gentleman from Georgia reserves. Gentlewoman from the District of Columbia is recognized.
I'm pleased to yield 3 minutes to my good friend, the gentleman from Virginia, a sponsor of this bill, Mr. Connolly.
Gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my good friend from the District of Columbia, Ms. Norton, and my friend from Georgia, Mr. Carter, for their leadership in managing today. I rise today, Mr. Speaker, in strong support of this bill, which will make fundamental changes to project and program management practices and standards for the federal government. The bill's co-sponsor, Representative Todd Young, and I currently serve as co-chairs of the Government Efficiency Caucus, which to some may seem like an oxymoron. In our capacity as co-chairs, Representative Young and I work together on a bipartisan basis to develop the Program Management Improvement and Accountability Act. After taking input from many stakeholders, including from agency management and private sector partners regarding the root causes of poor project performance, we identified serious deficiencies in program and project management competencies across the entire federal government. As ranking member of the Government Operations Subcommittee, it's deeply troubling to me that so many federal projects and programs find themselves substantially over budget or significantly behind schedule. These are all symptoms of a lack of institutional focus and attention to the mechanics of project management. This bill strengthens project management policy throughout the federal government by requiring consistent project standards and guidelines for program management, demanding accountability at OMB and in federal agencies to capture and implement lessons learned, and requiring a clear identification of skills and competencies necessary for effective program management professionals. I have the honor of representing more than 13,000 project managers, federal project managers, and the lack of requirements for the position is not acceptable. The job description for an important position where billions of dollars are being spent should be clearly defined. And this legislation instructs OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, to develop a job classification and career path for these professionals. I am proud to have worked with Congressman Young and the Government Efficiency Caucus on a bipartisan basis. We have the support of nonpartisan good government groups, including the Project Management Institute and the National Academy of Public Administration behind this bill. As a result, the PMIAA passed through our committee, the Oversight and Government Reform Committee, without objection and passed the Senate unanimously. I strongly urge my colleagues to support this important piece of legislation that I think will lead to significant efficiencies in the federal government and ultimately benefit the American taxpayer. And I yield back.
Gentleman from Virginia yields back. Gentlewoman from the District of Columbia reserves. Gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentlewoman from the District of Columbia is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I strongly support this bill. Thank my colleague for his work on this bill, my good friend from Virginia, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlewoman from the District of Columbia yields back. Gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Mr. Speaker,